What's up gamers, my name's Fox. In this video we're going to talk about Reaper in Dawntrail. First I'm quickly going to go over the changes that Reaper has received in Dawntrail, then I will be showcasing those changes, and lastly I will be talking about Reaper in Dawntrail and give you my opinion on the job. If you're uncertain about leveling this class, this video might help you decide if you want to or if you rather not. If you already have leveled it, please let me know in the comments how you feel about Reaper, because I want to know how people feel about this class. Let's have a look at the changes that Reaper has received. As always, any job changes can be found on the official Final Fantasy XIV website, which is what I'm looking at right now. We will not be looking at all the revisions here because most of them are just potency changes or naming changes because of certain new introduced skills and whatnot, so I will just be talking about the important changes. One of them is actually that Harp will now be giving you 10 soul gauge. That's pretty big actually, because it doesn't delay your burst window anymore. It will not cause you to not have enough soul gauge. That's a very nice change in case you're forced to use a ranged skill. The same is the case for Harvest Moon. It will now also give you 10 soul gauge. Otherwise, there are no real crazy changes besides maybe Plentiful Harvest, which now, instead of giving you gauge, it will actually give you the effect Ideal Host, which allows you to execute Enshroud without consuming gauge, so no overcapping or anything like that, but obviously the duration is only 30 seconds. Now, let's talk about the changes that are actually new and change a little bit of the playstyle. First up is Sacrificium, an OG CD you get access to after pressing Enshroud. It will change the button of Gluttony into Sacrificium. It does 530 potency, it's fun to use, it looks cool. Just another OG CD to press, doesn't really affect the rotation, but still cool of course. Then we have Executioner's Gibbet and Executioner's Gallows, which is something that is only usable after pressing Gluttony. So whenever you use Gluttony, you will get access to the enhanced version kinda of Gibbet and Gallows. Of course, we already have enhanced, so they had to give it a different name, so now it's Executioners. Quite a hard potency, as you can see, with 820, for example, here. So every minute, you will be using those two ones after pressing Gluttony. The idea probably was to maybe have us use Gluttony in the burst window, but it does not have enough potency for that to actually go through. Same obviously for the AoE edition. And then lastly, our newest skill is Perfectio, which is basically a second Communio without any cast time. You can only execute this if you actually went into your Enshroud window after using Plentiful Harvest. That's pretty much all the important changes, to be honest. As you can see, combo hasn't changed a lot. There is not much else to talk about. Reaper is still very much the same. So let's have a look at how these changes actually affect the playstyle. As Glamour is a true endgame, here is of course a quick look at the new gear that Reaper has received, the artifact gear. It looks quite cool. I personally don't like the hood as much, but definitely the scythe is something that is also pretty nice. But let's talk about the changes quickly. So as I mentioned earlier, Harvest Moon gives now 10 soul gauge. Very cool change, very nice. The same can be said for Harp. As you can see, it goes up at 20. Another interesting change is that after using Hell's Egress or Ingress, you get Enhanced Harp, which when you use it will reduce the cooldown by 10 seconds. Here you can see 10-second cooldown reduction might come in handy in the future, who knows. Let's have a look at the Gluttony changes. So Gluttony is the same as before, but when you use it, you get access to Executioner's Gallows and Executioner's Gibbet, of course, which is simply put more damage. That's it. You cannot access them otherwise. It's just straight up more damage. So that's of course nice. Let's use Arcane Circle and let's get our stuff going so we can use Plentiful Harvest, which is of course the same as before. So after using Plentiful Harvest, I get access to Ideal Host, 30-second buff that allows me to execute Enshroud for no gauge cost because we are not getting gauge anymore. So let's do that. And then we see I have now Oblatio buff, which allows me to execute Sacrificium, new skill, which is the button of Gluttony. But let's go over and get our Communio out so we can have a look at the new skill. So of course, as always, Communio has a cast time, but now the Communio button changing to Perfectio. Now what's interesting here is that this lasts for 30 seconds. So you optimally, of course, when you use this inside of buffs, but otherwise you can also hold it if you know you have to disengage at some point, if it's happening within the next 30 seconds. So very versatile. It also has no cast time. I can move while using it. Very cool. Honestly, pretty nice. Those are honestly the rather biggest changes. Now, just to demonstrate again, here is Gluttony, but just to make sure, you do not get access to Perfectio when you don't use the Plentiful Harvest. Only after using Plentiful Harvest. Now, I didn't use it here. There is no Perfectio. So you will only get access to it every 2 minutes, basically, because it is tied to Arcane Circle. Those are the biggest changes. Now let's have a look at the opener rotation. In terms of rotation and playstyle, honestly, not much has changed for Reaper. We are still doing a double enshroud window inside of the 2-minute buffs. Even though Gluttony and the enhanced Gallows and Gibbet now do a lot more damage, they are still being used outside of the window just because they don't do enough damage. Maybe that will change in the future, but for now, that is the way we play it. So it is pretty much the same job as it was before Dawntrail. There's obviously a few small changes that we have in the opener and that we have in the 2-minute enter window. So in the time we enter the 2-minute buffs, which I will show you. Let's first have a look at the opener. We're starting off with Shadow of Death into our potion. Then Soul Slice into Arcane Circle and Gluttony, followed by Gallows and Gibbet into Plentiful Harvest and Enshroud. So let's execute this. Of course, I cannot use my potion. Second time recording, first time didn't work out so well. So this is basically what we do in the opener. It is really big damage. The opener also feels pretty nice. The new OGCD, of course, comes into play. We're executing our normal Enshroud window now with the addition of Perfectio, so don't forget to press your button again afterwards. Of course, we're using Soul Slice to still get the damage from that skill. And now we'll just be continuing this whole rotation until we reach the 2-minute window, because it has changed how we enter it due to the fact that we want as much damage in it as possible. So we're gonna basically already use part of the first Enshroud window to minimize the time inside of Arcane Circle, if that makes any sense to you. If not, just watch it. It's gonna take a while to get there, obviously, because it's 2-minute cooldown, so I have to play it out. Of course, as always, Gluttony for now on cooldown. Now keep in mind, Gluttony will actually be delayed in our second or our 2-minute window rather, because of double Enshroud. So don't be worried when you see it be on cooldown for a longer time of period. That is normal. We can now execute again our Enshroud window here to not overcap on gauge, because we still want to have 2 Enshroud windows, but we also don't want to overcap, of course, right? So make sure to not enter the 2-minute window with too much gauge as before. But we will soon be there at the 2-minute window. Of course, this is taking a while. So make sure you have 50 gauge as I have right now. And now, this is important. Once we have around 9 seconds on Arcane Circle, we will still be doing 2 combo GCDs. Here I now reach 9 seconds. So this is 1 GCD, 2 GCDs. I enter Enshroud. I use Shadow of Death. I use now Cross Reaping. And then another Shadow of Death, and then I pop the OGCDs as we are going into our second Enshroud window with Communio. We will be using, again, Plentiful Harvest and Shroud. This will all be inside of Arcane Circle. That's the goal of it. This is the most damage possible, basically. And now let's not forget Perfectio. As you can see, it still lands in the window with Gluttony, which is the goal, basically. So this is what the normal rotation on Reaper looks like. As you can see, not much has changed. If you liked it in Endwalker, you will enjoy it in Dawntrail, in my opinion. Lastly, I then want to talk about my personal opinion of Reaper in Dawntrail. And as I already have hinted earlier, the job has not changed a lot, as you also saw. It is pretty much the same job that it was before, but I would say a little bit better. I think that some of the QL changes like 10 soul gauge on Harp and Harvest Moon are actually quite significant and really good. It is basically less punishing if you have to disengage, and then of course having access to another OGCD during your burst window feels nice. It's just more to press. And then also having Perfectio is just another very flexible GCD actually, because it is ranged and because it has no cast time. So that's something that's actually also pretty cool. I'm happy it doesn't have cast time because I don't want another Samurai 2.0 here. Overall, I think that Reaper is currently damage-wise extremely good. Like if you have a look at FFLogs, Reaper is at the top of the charge for melee DPS. It is only outclassed by Pictomancer right now, so damage-wise Reaper is very, very, very strong. Really top choice DPS-wise, and playstyle-wise, I think the class is good, but I personally would have wished for some more changes. I don't know what, I cannot tell you what I would have wished for, to be honest. But I feel like the class could have maybe had a bit more that makes it a bit more interesting, because my problem with the Reaper in Endwalker was that after playing it for a while, I felt like I got bored of it quickly. Like at first, Reaper always feels refreshing, it feels nice because of this fast burst window. That is something that's really cool, that is actually comparable to Machinist in a way. And though after playing it for like a month or two, I was like, okay, well, it's very repetitive, it's also... You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe you feel different about this. I just wish that there would have been a few more changes maybe to it. Now, what I really like about Reaper that other classes do not have is that you have so much flexibility on your positional, since you can basically kind of delay Gibbet and Gallows, which is really, really cool. It's one of my favorite things about this class, to be honest, that you have such a good control over your positional. So overall, I think the class is decent, very much the same as it was before. Wished for maybe more changes, but overall pretty good, and I don't think they did anything. They definitely didn't kill it, they definitely didn't make it worse, they just made it better. So if you enjoyed it in Endwalker, you will definitely also enjoy it in Dawntrail. Anyway, that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, and again, tell me in the comments how you feel about Reaper if you have leveled it. If you haven't leveled it, did I convince you to level it? Let me know in the comments, as I just mentioned. Thank you again for watching, and of course, I'm wishing you an amazing rest of your day, wherever you live.